So let's dive into the message, which of course, right, is the love of a mother and how it shapes us. I have been called mother, mommy, mom, mama dog, tutu, all these names mean the same thing to me. It just depends who says it, right? And some have to earn a privilege to say these names, but other than that, my love for whoever says them is equal. Like I just love you dearly. If you've ever called me one of these names, I love you dearly, A mother's love begins before a child even takes a breath, right? It is carried in her body, her prayers, her sleepless nights, and her constant concern for this baby, for this child, no matter how old. It is a love that's willing to give before it's asked. It endures before it is ever seen, and to hope, when circumstances are uncertain, right? So scripture reminds us that some of the most powerful expressions of God's love are not loud or flashy. They're faithful, quiet, and sacrificial, right? So a few example scriptures that reflect this motherly love. My first one comes from Isaiah 49:15, right? And it's in Isaiah 49:15, God asks this tender question: can a woman forget her nursing child, or show no compassion for the child of her womb? Even these may forget, yet I will not forget you. So this scripture, God's pointing to us, basically a mother's love as one of the strongest human examples of compassion, and then declares that his love is even greater, right? Because it's true, like we can get disconnected and distracted in life as a mom, as a father, as parents, right? But God's love is constant, and that's what he was trying to remind us here, right? But this tells us something really profound. It tells us that a mother's love is meant to mirror, the heart of God, right? A mother sacrifices in ways that often don't go, it just goes unnoticed. She sets aside her comfort, for her child for her child to have rest. She carries burdens that her child, can be free from. She gives time, strength, dreams, and sometimes tears, asking for little in return, right? Her sacrifices is not always recognized, but it is always significant. There are so many mamas I know that I wish I could just shout out their names and give them praise and glory and tell them, great job, because you've sacrificed. I've seen tears. I've seen, so much destruction or grief or things that may have broken these mamas, right, in my life. And honestly, they come through it so much stronger, and which in return gives me strength, but also gives example to their children, to their loved ones, to their families, right? Anyways, I would love to shout out all their names, because you're seen, you're known, you're not forgotten. If anything, I have prayed for you. I will continue to encourage you and just want you to feel loved. And I just say this in general because I want whoever watching to know that if you're a mother or a mother figure or have taken on a role that you never expected for children or loved ones, first of all, thank you. Thank you because I know it's a sacrifice, but thank you for your obedience and diligence to, trust in what God has planned for you. So as I go on, in Proverbs 31, 26, 27, scripture says, she opens her mouth with wisdom, and the teaching of kindness is on her tongue. She watches over the affairs of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. This kind of love is active. It is watchful and intentional, right? It shows us that it's not just something we feel. It's something that we live out daily as mothers, in the home. We see the same sacrificial love in Mary, right? The mother of Jesus, right? She carried the promises of God, trusted him when the path was unclear, and stood faithfully even at the foot of the cross. Her heart knew joy, confusion, deep sorrow, right? Yet she remained faithful in God's plan. Her motherhood reminds us that loving a child does not guarantee an easy road, not at all, but it does shape an eternal impact, right? The other night, while I was in the ER with my son, sitting with him, waiting for his test results to come back, in this life moment, right? All I saw was my little baby. He's a grown man with his own beautiful family, but I saw my little baby boy, right? And, it reminded me of when I was pregnant with him. Like, a normal pregnancy is 40 weeks, but for some reason he decided he wanted to stay a couple more weeks. So I was overdue. Like, his due date was March 1st, and but he decided to stay 12 more days before coming into this world. Anyways, the memories were flooding back of his childhood, and I remember the day he was born, right? It took 36 hours to get him out. He really did not want to come out. This kid did not want to come out. And I believe me, I do remind him at every birthday because it definitely was a sacrifice. But the moment it was over, and I recall saying to myself, I would have 5 more of him. Not because I'm his mother, but he's such an amazing man. He's grown into such an amazing man, and I'm so proud of that. So Mommy thanks you for being who you are, Nicholas James. Yeah. I would give you my lungs and my heart for you to breathe and have blood running through your veins so that you can continue making this world a better place with you in it. I believe that is the heart of every mother, right? Whether the child is born from your own womb or becomes a blessing from an unexpected circumstance of life, right? You were chosen as a mom, as a woman, to love the child the best that you can. And perhaps the most beautiful connection of all is this: a mother's sacrifice A mother's sacrifice reflects the sacrifice of God himself, right? In John 3:16, it tells us, for God so loved the world that he gave his only son, right? Love gives. Love is sacrifice. Love places others' needs above its own. And I believe mothers live this truth every day, right? To the mothers out there who feel unseen, weary, or stretched thin, God sees you. God sees you. Every prayer whispered over a sleeping child, every tear cried in silence, every sacrifice made in love matters deeply to him. In Psalms 127:3, it reminds us that children are a heritage from the Lord, right? And those entrusted with that heritage are held close to God's heart. And to all of us, whether we are mothers, have mothers, or carry mother-like figures, or a mother-like figure, in our lives, this love invites us to live differently. It calls us to love sacrificially, to show compassion freely, and to reflect God's heart to the next generation. We must lead by example. We must lead with love, with faith and forgiveness. Not just for the kids, but for ourselves. Earlier I read from Proverbs 31, right? When I first learned about Proverbs 31 woman, I thought, how am I supposed to even live such a way, right? Almost 30 years, just to give you an idea, almost 30 years ago, I first accepted Jesus, right? And into my life, I was far from being virtuous. But as I learned what that meant, right, my heart began to heal. And to give you a little understanding of the Proverbs 31 woman is, it's a portrait of a godly wisdom lived out in daily life, right? Especially through the character of a woman who fears the Lord. And to give you a concept of the chapter of 31, it begins with the advice from a mother to her son, King Lemuel, right, in this chapter, urging him to live with integrity, self-control, justice, and compassion, especially for those to defend the poor and the voiceless, right? And then it moves to the well-known description of the Proverbs 31 woman, the virtuous and noble woman, right? Showing her as hardworking and wise and generous, strong and faithful. So, again, she manages her home with excellence, serves others with kindness, and lives with purpose and dignity. This is what the chapter is about. The chapter concludes by emphasizing that true beauty and worth come from fearing the Lord, not outward appearance. Her life, Proverbs 31 woman, her life and actions bring honor to her family and praise to God. In essence, Proverbs 31 celebrates wisdom, faith, and character, right? And reminding us that a life rooted in reverence for God leaves a lasting legacy. I am so thankful for the many, many Proverbs 31 women in my life who helped me when I needed a village, right? They taught me to become more like the Proverbs 31 woman. of course, the fear of the Lord, but in order to get there, to understand how to be virtuous, in order, to have that wisdom, it has to be learned. It has to be taught. It has to be shown by example. So again, that's why I say thank you to all those women in my life that showed me how to be that Proverbs 31 woman, right? May we honor mothers not only with words, but with gratitude, patience, and love. Like, may we not take them for granted. Yeah. And may we remember that every act of selfless love points us back to God, who first loved us.